Hello and welcome to the morning brief right here on Channels Television. I'm Jeffrey Uzong. It's a brand new day, the third day in the month of April. We're already counting down into the second half, no, not second half now, second quarter of the year 2025. Bukola.
Yeah, the very beginning of the second quarter of the year 2025. And we're up bright and early on this rather cool Thursday morning, but we're grateful just as well. Welcome to your perfect morning starter right here on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka. And of course, Kaide will be joining us sometime later on the show. So
absolutely,
you haven't missed out on your third favorite of the show.
And of course, my heart goes out to everyone who has been struggling with the traffic on the island. It's been one hellish situation for a lot of people. I understand one of the bridges was closed for repairs or some work. I haven't been into that area for quite a while now. And we understand also that the bridge that was closed hasn't been opened just yet this morning, because yesterday a lot of people went to work quite late. People spent hours, people had to turn, people had to sleep in different places. And the complaints people are having, I haven't gotten an official position of the Lagos state government or the federal government, whichever is doing that work, as to why whatever it is being done on that area, on that bridge in that area, was not done on, say, Saturday, Sunday. Monday was a public holiday. Yesterday was Wednesday rather. Tuesday public holiday, and then they started that work by Wednesday, putting people through some of the very gruesome, painful experience that people are going through. So if you do have a video, if you have images, videos of yesterday, and if you have videos of today as to what is playing out on the island towards the Marina area and everywhere there's traffic because of that work that is ongoing, please send it to us. Our WhatsApp number will be up just a moment. You can send us via email as well, or just hashtag us at CTV Morning Brief on X. Let's just show the people what exactly it is that the people on the island who are going to work or who are leaving the island are going through because of that work that has been done. Bukola.
Yeah, we do empathize with those on the island who must commute amid these rather difficult circumstances. Perhaps you just try to navigate around the situation by checking traffic updates before you set out. Make sure that, well, some people must just set out inevitably because they have to work. We do understand. Perhaps this is the time that the app created by the Lagos state government will come to bear. Maybe you must have that as a given. But besides the traffic situation this morning, Jeffrey, I'm also looking at the president's sacking of Mr. Mele Kyari as the CEO of NNPCL, and the appointment of the new man, Ojulari, Mr. Bashir Ojulari, as the new helmsman of the NNPCL. Of course, there have been talks about why the old board was done away with and the new board was appointed. And, you know, you can't just but reflect on the last couple of years of the work of the past board at Nigeria's big oil company, the NNPCL, of course, which has had a checkered history of lack of accountability, inability to deliver. But we must also look at the critical facts. You know, under this immediate past administration of the NNPCL, we've had the country's oil rig count increase. We must also look at all sides of the story. We've also had, more than the last 2 years, an increase in the barrels per day production of Nigeria to 1.74 million. I believe that's more than what was recorded in the last 2 years. We've also had partnerships with international organizations to ensure more efficient transport of Nigerian crude across the nation's maritime line. But then again, of course, what was promised was energy security, but we know that there's a lot more that should have come to Nigerians as a result of the landmark achievement of having our own homegrown refinery, and of course, the return to the scene of the Port Harcourt refinery and the Warri refinery. There hasn't been any significant change in terms of Nigerians enjoying the benefit of those two 3 infrastructure into the seed. So what will be different this time with the new appointments? Nigerians are looking forward to a whole lot. And, you know, this is where we must also say that Nigerians shouldn't become disillusioned, shouldn't go to sleep and not continue to scrutinize the performance of the administrators of the biggest oil company. And let's also remind the administration at this point that regardless of the explanations that the officials of the presidency would be giving us about the president not having appointed or declared himself as the minister of petroleum, we don't have a minister of petroleum superintending over that ministry besides the minister of state. So we still see Mr. President as a Minister of Petroleum, and we view the performance of the group of the NNPCL through also the performance of Mr. President, and a lot more needs to be is expected of that ministry. Also, you know, the prosecution of crude oil thieves. Last year or 2 years ago, we had that major pipeline you know, detection by our correspondent who went to the creeks, Olu Phillips, where a pipeline that has been siphoning fuel for the past 9 years was discovered. Till date, we've not had anything done. The last time, I believe, Jeffrey, the last time we had prosecution of crude oil thieves was during former President Goodluck Jonathan. We haven't had anything, you know, like that, any significant, you know, scrutiny of that space.
At the end of the day, it's also, I'm sometimes tempted to believe when people use that assertion, although I don't totally agree that if somebody explains Nigeria to you and you understand, you didn't explain it well. It sounds funny, right? But it makes sense sometimes when you look at what plays out in some of this sector. What plays out in politics is almost like a joke to what plays out in the oil and gas sector. I can tell you that for free. There are a lot of magic and funny things that happen. I don't want to go there. So, by the way, the president is out of the country. They say he's on a short visit.
Yeah.
I don't know what 2 weeks. 2 weeks is not short visit, Mr. President and the presidency. That's half the time of any standard leave. And
a lot can happen in 2 weeks, you know, in the life of an administration.
He left yesterday, and of course, he's going to sit there, work from there, looking at what he has done so far, evaluate things, assess things before his second anniversary. I'm wondering myself, does he need to travel out of the country to be able to process what has happened in the last 2 years plus of his administration? I don't know what the handlers were thinking in the way they wrote that particular trip of the president. But we must not forget the biggest story, which has to do with the Edo Governorship Election Tribunal. Okpebhola's mandate has been affirmed by the tribunal, dismissing, is this striking? I've forgotten the legal term now, for lacking in merit that of Aswe Godalo and PDP and all of that. Bukola, one day, I hope maybe during the show we're going to talk about electoral jurisprudence. If you see what the law says, if you don't win election on the field, by our laws, it's quite difficult for you to go and prove anything in court. One of the things that the Electoral Act did, that the Supreme Court now made a pronouncement that is making it a confusion right now, is that the Electoral Act says, I think section 137, that if the petitioner, for instance, now I'm talking generally now, not because of the election, if the petitioner, for instance, is able to provide all of the evidence in terms of documentation from INEC and all of that, it doesn't need to call witnesses. But that was played down during the presidential election. So I don't know what we're going to hold on to. Is it the pronouncement of the Supreme Court or what is law in the Electoral Act? Because that's a big conflict. It's just like saying I recorded 1,000 irregularities or malpractice, whatever, in 1,000 polling units. By the law of evidence, I'm supposed to provide all 1,000 witnesses, at least something close to that, to be able to, because the PDP went to provide, you're complaining about over 300 polling units, and then you called 19 witnesses. Out of those 19 witnesses, according to the case, only 5 party agents who were at that polling unit. The case, according to them, will fall flat on its face because
we were unable to reconcile the accounts of the witnesses with the documentation provided.
But the Electoral Act, section 137, says that if you are able to provide, documentation that is valid from INEC, you don't need witnesses. It's there in the Electoral Act. But the pronouncement of the Supreme Court in the presidential election kind of invalidated. So we need to look at these laws properly. So I'm saying this to say, Congratulations to Mondo Pueblo. By the way, we must say that because his mandate has been upheld. We need to look at our laws again and look at the pronouncement of courts. Because it's going to be, at the end of the day, what happens is that politicians, now whether it's PDP, APC, Labour, they will do all they can to win election at the field because your chance of doing anything in court is close to zero.
It would be a worthwhile conversation, because, you know, I was asking why there continues to be a very stark contrast between, you know, our laws and convention in terms of, you know, the acts carried out by members of our executives. So I really do look forward to that conversation. And we could cite quite a number of examples, but we will be totally out of time.
Okay, what are we doing today?
What we're doing today. And we're headed to quite a number of issues this morning on the program, starting, of course, with the third Global Disability Summit. We'll return to Berlin this morning, Germany, where the third Global Disability Summit is taking place, and we'll be speaking with the Minister of State for Humanitarian Affairs, Dr. Yusuf Sununu, to discuss how deliberations and decisions made at the summit can affect the inclusivity landscape in Nigeria.
Okay, Bukola, maybe you take the next one as well.
Yes, indeed. From there, we go to a very important conversation, strategic national branding, where we'll be taking a look at how we can rebrand and repackage Nigeria's image in the global community to enhance multilateral relations and foster development. A Herculean task, if you ask me. But from those who are doing the work, it is doable.
And of course, we'll talk about music and how faith intersects music. We'll get all of that on the program. And redefining workforce strategy is one of the things we'll be looking at today on the program. Essential to understand how to manage it. And then we'll go to this particular one that has to do with music, through faith, through music. A performance right here on the show. It's been a while, so let's get back to it.
Yeah, that's Noel Hugh Robinson, a British singer who will take us through his unique journey as a performer. Besides that, there's also art. It's Art on Thursday on the show, where we'll sit with a multidisciplinary artist who works, who expresses identity and emotion through her work. A conversation that promises to be very, very interesting.
Okay, so don't forget you can join us as well on our social media handle. We talked about that Lagos Island traffic that has been biting quite hard. Please send us videos, send us messages, CTV Morning Brief, that's a hashtag. And this, especially this WhatsApp, I hope is up and running. Videos, we would like to see videos so that our producers can, you know, put it together. Before the end of the show, we get to show Nigerians what Lagosians on the island are going through, and maybe call the attention of His Excellency the Governor, as well as everybody in charge is concerned. Bukola, I think we'll go to the headlines. Don't forget, Kyle will be joining us from Berlin in Germany, where he's there for the third Disability Summit. We'll be having a conversation with one of the honorable ministers who is also at that conference. But let's get to the dailies. I think the first daily, but we'll bring in our analyst for the dailies, Mr. Sam Kagbo, who is a senior advocate of Nigeria. But as soon as he gets in, as soon as he gets in, we'll get to discuss with him. But let's go to the Blueprint newspaper. Blueprint newspaper. The headlines, optimism as Ojulari Kida take over at NNPCL. So there are two things. I understand the gentleman is from, is it Kwara State now?
Yes, indeed.
So they are saying that he's still a Yoruba man, that this Yoruba-centric administration of Bola Tinubu continues, whether it's coming from the southeast or whether it's coming from the central or not. So I don't know. You know, now at least he's spreading it out. It used to be Lagos-centric. But it's spreading it out. You know, we are screamed
Yoruba-centric across two regions.
Yeah. So you know, we were screamed when Muhammadu Buhari was president. Said, "You cannot do this. This is not working. This is Nigeria. The constitution doesn't allow this." But it gives them discretion to choose whoever they want to work with. But
yet again, the contradiction between what our laws and, in fact, our policies say and convention.
Okay.
The federal character principle is suffering here. You know, and well, Nigerians from Edo State, Nigerians from some other parts of the country, particularly the north, are saying that, look, Mr. President, there's competence everywhere, and we have been shortchanged in the appointment
even
of your
some of his kingsmen are even screaming that at the end of the day, it's about he can choose whoever he wants. Let's be clear on that. He can choose 5 people from his state. No law break. He hasn't broken the law. The most important is that he have to pick one person from his state when it comes to ministers. But all of this appointment, because being the GCE of NNPCL is a juicy responsibility. So everybody wants a piece of the pie. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, Tinubu sets $30 billion investment, 2 million barrel per day target for new board by 2027. Team capable of achieving surpassing targets. Tom Polo has spoken, the former militant.
And CEO of, we believe, of Tantita Security Services.
Yes, founder of Tantita. Abdulrazak hails new GCEO pedigree. Analyst wants Kyari prudence sustained. So, shout out to Mele Kyari. Some of us have been screaming that I think it's time to go. Finally, he's bowed out. But he's done a few things. He's opened the books of the NNPCL. Before he came in, the books were never opened. There are certain things they do I don't totally agree with, but at least we'll give him credit for opening the books of the NNPCL. We went from less about minus 800 billion naira in deficit to plus 3 trillion naira in profit, although it's paper profit most of the time because we're forward sold a lot of things, so we are paying back. Anyway, that one, the PIA was under his leadership. The coming on stream of the refineries were under his leadership, whether it's naphtha blending or whatever it is, anyway, it came on stream. So he's recorded some success, opening the books for me, the refineries as well as the PIA. So now what personally I would expect, and lots of Nigerians expect, beyond expertise, is transparency. The NNPC is too opaque. It's like voodoo sometimes what happens in the NNPCL. So more transparency will engender people, and let's IPO this NNPCL so that people can buy shares and more governance structure will be enhanced as far as the NNPCL is concerned.
But Jeffrey, I insist so that people can profit, you know, from the infrastructure that has been developed at home. If not, all of this would have remained an academic exercise and excellence, as far as I'm concerned, without, you know, Nigerians benefiting from it. But let's go to the Nigerian News Direct this morning, and, you know, it focuses on the economy. Listen to this: economic hardship. Well, let's go to other stories on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct. Of course, this paper also focuses on the newly appointed Group CEO of the NNPCL. And, of course, you can go to the inside pages where you can get a close look at his CV. He's had ties with the Shell Development Company Limited, former head at Renaissance Group, you know, and so many other achievements. He's worked at the international scene as well, for a board member, I believe, of Petroleum Engineers. So quite a lot to look forward to as far as his CV is concerned. But will he translate his years of experience as a you know, sterling petroleum engineer into more achievements at the NNPCL? There's a lot of optimism in that regard, so we hope to see results. And look at the front page as well of the Nigerian News Direct. You see the court decision, the tribunal verdict on the Edo governorship election. Edo Guba Igodalo heads to appeal court. Yes, we saw that statement come through yesterday, that they would take up you know, their case to the appeal court as tribunal upholds Ukpevolo's victory. A lot of other stories on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct, but we can rest on that for now while you do all of the diving to get more details later on. But stay with the morning brief at this particular point in time. Perhaps, Jeffrey, it would be time to take a look at some of what our viewers are saying as far as the big stories are concerned. Okay. And we could start with
that traffic. If we have the videos ready, we'll get to talk about that traffic where the federal government had ordered the reopening of the Independence Bridge located on Victoria Island. But I was listening to the radio on my way here. Some callers into the program were saying that that bridge has not yet been reopened. I don't know whether that's true, so that's why we're asking for your confirmation, because Lagosians, especially those who work and do business on the island, they've been through hell and high waters in the last 24 hours. Some have spent about, I understand, 4 hours, 6 hours. Some had to go back. So if we could get a look at that particular one, as soon as we have it, we'll get to see the situation as it was yesterday. So our producer will get it to us. But we'll move away from that to tell you that the president is out of the country. Yesterday, we got the presser from his handlers saying that he will be leaving the country for 2 weeks. They call it fortnight, which is about 2 weeks. He's going on a working visit, and he's going to be there in France, in Paris. You know, that's his favorite destination to go to. So that's him heading to his aircraft, waiting. Some persons were waiting for him. I think top government officials, members of cabinet, including the FCT minister as well, were seeing him off as he heads out to France on a working visit for 2 weeks. So he's going to be working from France.
Jeffrey, you've been emphasizing that. The president's second home is France. He has ties with France, you know, on a very deep level that some of us may not understand. And he also has, you know, quite a good relationship with the president of France as well. You know, the last exchange that they had, you know, trended on Twitter. But
some of his favorite persons.
We wish the president well, and we look forward to more results as he scrutinizes the performance of his administration during that working visit in France. Speaking of which, you know,
he should stay here and scrutinize.
May 29 is here already.
There's no better place to scrutinize what you've done for 2 years than here. Don't go outside and scrutinize.
Jeffrey, there's nothing you can do about it.
I have to say my mind anyway.
Okay.
But I wish him well.
Mindset.
I'm saying stay here and do the evaluation, Mr. President. The heat is on.
Mindset. Of course, that big story that we've reviewed already, what are you saying about it? The president has sacked NNPCL GCU Mele Kyari and appointed engineer Bashir Bayo Ojulari as the new GCU and Hamadu Musa Kida as non-executive chairman. So FAO1SGR is the first user this morning who says all stellar portfolios in this round of appointment, Austin Uvuri and Babs Omotowa, are both juggernauts in oil and gas, as well as the new GCU Ojulari. Let's see what these eggheads, you mean to say, or heads, have in store for Nigeria's treasure trove. So we said it earlier, a lot of optimism there, even from you know, our users this morning. But let's see how it goes.
There's always optimism from the profile of the gentleman. I understand they know their onion, they understand the way this thing works. But as a Nigerian who has watched that space for a long time, before expertise right now, I'm not interested in expertise first. I'm interested in transparency.
Absolutely.
Transparent. No matter what expertise you're bringing, if the NNPC is still opaque, it's failure to me. We need to understand what is going on in that space. How much of our oil is being sold, how much is yet to be sold, how much is negotiated to be sold, how much we're owing, all of that. That's the good part of the opening the books that I congratulated Mele Kyari for, because it helped us not to make assumptions in some of these things. So the NNPCL needs prudent, better management so that we don't get through where we are not able to meet our domestic obligation is this forward sales. And I don't know any company that will allow that to happen, but this is where we are. So this person, Nuruddin, says, congratulations, it's a new dawn at NNPCL. I hope and pray this new dispensation will be more pro-Nigerian than the outgone one. Congratulations, M. Kyari. You've done your best. It's time to step aside and also watch, advise, and constructively criticize. Maybe you write a book as well, because that's a trend in Nigeria. When they leave, they write the book.
Yeah.
Because you have the next
tell
one.
Their own side to the story, but how much of accountability was delivered while they held office? And we can talk about all of these actors in Nigeria's political and economic landscape. Okay, so the next user is J. Faminigba. I hope I got your name. Pardon me if I didn't. And you say many investors, local, international, key players in the oil and gas industry have expected this for long. At M. Kyari, that's the former GCU's handle, and his team are complacent and saturated in graft. Do you have proof for that allegation. Of course, we demand questions. The questions are valid, but blanket allegations, blanket submissions on, guilt conferred on individuals may not necessarily be good. But no one can openly voice out, more so as Dr. Pius Akinyelure, the president's right-hand man, is the board chairman. Well,
okay.
Valid question there, or valid concern. It's just the approach.
Okay, Farouk Dan Musa says, congratulations to him, well-deserved appointment. We from the north, we have done our tenure successfully. I just pity the rest of the southern region. I don't even think
Mr. Julari is also from the north.
I don't want to go through all your messages, but you have your point anyway. I guess he's talking about the issue of...
Mr. Julari is from the north.
Oh, really?
North Central.
Okay.
Kwara is north.
But Julari is from the North Central.
North Central.
Yes. Yeah, so let's be clear. By region, he's from the North Central, but by ethnicity, he's a Yoruba man.
I think we've done the work of the managers of the presidency this morning, because if they were tackled, they would maneuver the argument by saying that...
No, you can't take it away. That's from the North Central.
It's from the North Central.
The North Central has been advocating for opportunities at this federal level. So this is the opportunity. So we'll give it to them so they can manage this one for now, and all of that. Let's go to that tribunal case.
All right. You have the first one.
Dismissing Ighodalo's petition affirms Okpebolo as the governor of Edo State. So congratulations, Your Excellency, Monday Okpebolo. It's a mixed situation for him now. On one hand, he's dealing with Uromi issue, and now this is bringing some level of joy to him that his mandate is not shaky, at least at the first, at this level. He'll go to appeal. Of course, it will end up at the Supreme
Jeffrey,
Court.
I wish I could say that I was going to be surprised by whatever the tribunal would return as a verdict, but most Nigerians are not surprised, so maybe they just turn and move on.
I think when we discuss this, I'm going to help Nigerians understand why it's hard to prove cases in court when it comes to elections like this. Our laws, our own laws are supposed to help makes it difficult, trust me. But there's an escape route that was provided in the amended Electoral Act. But the pronouncement of the Supreme Court literally almost invalidated that because of the Evidence Act. So there's a conflict at the end of the day. Let's hear from Stephen Orukpe. Okpebolo is a winner man, simple and straight.
Are you a member of the APC? Well, let's
he
hear
has his
from...
valid reason. Maybe he's a party man. Fantastic.
Yeah,
he has to rejoice.
Let's hear from Emmanuel MB, who says, lessons. For Nigeria's elections, no matter how good a candidate thinks he or she is, I believe you're trying to say they must do everything within their power and resources to ensure you win the main election. The Nigeria court is not guaranteed to give it to you, no matter how good your case may look. So I guess it's echoing your sentiment there, Jeffrey. And,
yeah.
There's even a balance to it, in Nigerian local kind of communication. In Yoruba now, they say, jagba. You just snatch it at the first contest, which is the election, and then they can go to court. The others can go to court and cry. So it's really concerning.
It's very concerning. And it's the law that will help us out.
It's a dent on our elections, our election practice, the culture of our... And it's a very big aspect of our democracy. In fact, it's a determinant of how our democracy, should go. And
it's a lot of work.
At the first level, it falls short.
Let me read to you what the Electoral Act, Section 137 says. It shall not be, on the part they talk about effect on non-compliance now, because those are part of the grounds you can, take the case to court. It shall not be necessary for a party who alleges non-compliance with the provision of this act for the conduct of elections to call oral evidence if originals or certified true copies manifestly disclose the non-compliance alleged. But when we go to the Supreme Court, the presidential election, issues of witnesses, evidence, because according to our Evidence Act, if you say something happens, you have to provide evidence. So this provision is supposed to remove that human element, that if I have the document, where do I need the human beings? It will take time of court if I bring 1,000 people, and Nigerians don't like to go to court. Nigerians don't like to go to police station. So it's quite difficult. So that's why we're talking about it.
The burden of proof challenge. Okay, so We go ahead to Edo. We're still in Edo State, right?
Yes.
This time around, it's a different story. I never believed in Obaseki, even before swearing in. That's ascribed to Shaibu. I believe that's a former deputy governor who fell out with his principal. And
I think it was on our program.
Yeah.
One of our programs, because is it Political Paradigm?
Political Paradigm, yeah, with Terry.
Yeah.
So I hear about Akoji, is the first user, who says the same government he was a deputy governor in for 8 years before running out of favor because Obaseki refused him. PDP appointed governorship card bearer for governor. What we don't hear from Nigerian politicians doesn't exist. In fact, it doesn't exist. They will, in fact, if it doesn't exist, they will manufacture it. So that this has been recrafted from another, popular line in Nigerian social media space. Jeffrey.
Let's get a senior advocate to come in on this one. Senior advocate of Nigeria, Sam Kagbo, was supposed to join us earlier. Glitches, I guess. I hope you're not caught in traffic, Leonard Silk, by any shape or form in the air. But thank you for coming on the program. Perhaps we'll let you speak to the issue of the...
Thank you for having me. I'm sorry. And,
It's okay.
Right.
It's okay, Leonard Silk. So now that we have you, we've been talking about what's played out in Edo, and people have been reacting with the issue of, with the outcome of the tribunal judgment. Congratulations to Monday Okwebula, the governor. His mandate has been held up by the tribunal, but the petitioner is proceeding to the appeal court. Of course, we know it's going to all the way to the Supreme Court. And we're talking about the encumbrances of law, conflicting position. What do you make of the outcome of this tribunal judgment, and also speak to the issue of Evidence Act versus the provision of the Electoral Act as well?
Yeah, thank you. I don't think there is any conflicting judgment yet on this, but let me just talk generally on the challenges of one upturning an electoral mandate. The law is, or the electoral jurisprudence is harsh against the petitioner and very, very favorable to the winner of an election. Once you've won the election, there is that presumption that the result that was announced by INEC was indeed the result as manifested in the electoral documents, which are the forms EC8A to form EC8E. And usually there is that presumption that whatever you find in those documents, it's the true and result that reflected the voting pattern during the election. And when you now go to court, challenging the election, like in this case, I think they were challenging, their ground was that of overvoting. The process of proving that is very, very onerous. You need to have the BVAS, the bimodal gadget that replaced the former one. You need to have that, tender it, and get the figures out of it. You also need to tender all the electoral documents, and you call witnesses that would testify for you for every polling station that you have your complaint on. And that is difficult because you only have, most times, not more than 10 days to do that. And you are talking about the whole state. You have to call witnesses for every polling unit that you complain about, and usually it's the aggregate of that evidence that will be assessed. In the case of overvoting, we are talking about figures, saying that if the right mathematics is done, you are the winner. And the only section of the Electoral Act that speaks directly to cancellation of result due to discrepancy between accreditation and the figures that are announced is Section 51(2) of the Electoral Act. All the other provisions are one petitioners usually draw inferences from to say because of this or that, that election should be cancelled. So your own onus what we call the onus, which is actually your responsibility or duty, is for you to bring evidence and conduct your own proceedings before the tribunal, so that at the end of the day, the tribunal would have the belief from your own evidence that indeed, when the math is done, addition and subtraction are done from the documents that are presented, you are the winner. That's a very, very onerous task. On the other hand, if your complaint is that the election was mad by whatever complaints you have, then that is a higher onus, because unlike this one that is issue of mathematics, issue of addition and subtraction, here you have to prove every allegation to the hilt. It's not just you asking the tribunal to draw inferences from whatever. And the law is also that you cannot impute one evidence that you have from one polling unit to the other polling unit. So you have the responsibility of proving every allegation for every polling unit. And if also your complaint is about malpractice, it's not just enough to say that third parties committed this malpractice. You must also connect the activities of those third parties to the winner of the election. So this is a very difficult one, and that's why it's always very difficult for you to actually overturn an election.
But senior advocate, what can we learn, what lessons can we learn from this challenge of the burden of proof and the pattern of how INEC has defended its case in maybe one or two examples, perhaps from the Supreme Court's decision on the presidential election of 2023?
Well, you see, INEC, usually INEC is misunderstood. If I understand what your question, INEC is usually misunderstood because there is always that general feeling that INEC should not really defend the mandate it has declared, the return of the winner, and that it should stay neutral. I do not think so, because one of the complaint you are complaining is an indictment against INEC and for its own reputation. And if indeed the INEC believes that it did what it's supposed to do, mind you, its responsibility is to substantially comply with the Electoral Act. And if it thinks that she has discharged that burden and you are complaining, it behooves on it to defend that particular declaration and return robustly like it's been doing. And most of the time too, it's I don't know if I made myself clear here to see where the devil lies. It's in the Electoral Act itself and the jurisprudence of it. You see, you have stated that the electoral disputes are to be processed by a special proceeding, a process you call sui judice, a standalone procedure. But at the end of the day, standalone as it is, you still impute some responsibility that somebody who is proving a case, especially a criminal case, the same responsibility that that one had is the same responsibility that you are given to it. That, and sometimes if you allege criminality, you have to prove it beyond reasonable point.
Oh, there, senior advocates, we wanted to hear your thoughts on this one as much as we can, but well, we'll have him back some of the time on the program network, knocking off that conversation. Sam Gagbo is a senior advocate of Nigeria, enlightening us on electoral jurisprudence, which we can keep improving on until we get to that place where we can all say, okay, we're getting there. But the results, the decision has been made. Congratulations to the winner. Of course, if you're not comfortable, you head to the higher courts. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll piggyback on a few things we've said, but this time we're talking about perception management, repositioning our image, and rebranding Nigeria. That's the conversation. An expert who is a guru in marketing communication will be joining us right here on the program in just a moment. Join us again.
Welcome back. And so we'll start with rebranding Nigeria. It's not a task for the faint-hearted, but some have embarked upon that task and they're confident of getting results. So let's talk to one of them this morning. And joining us is a fellow of the Nigeria Institute of Public Relations, Mr. Yomi Badejo Okusoya. I'm going to call you YBO for this conversation. Good morning, sir, and thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So what many would not, it's a fighting ring that many would not get into, particularly because of the image of the country in the international community. But you have not just taken up that challenge. You have also set up the Nigeria Reputation Management Group, a 3-member panel, I believe, that is taking on that task to rebrand Nigeria. Tell us about your mandate and your strategy.
Okay, thank you very much again for having me, especially after that awful traffic we had yesterday. I didn't get home till about 1 o'clock, leaving my destination at 8 p.m. My wife got in at 3:30 and there was still traffic. So I'm using this platform to appeal to whoever is in charge of this. We cannot live like this. It's not also good for our reputation. Okay, having said that, the challenge of building reputation for Nigeria, you realize that when you talk about reputation, you talk about trust. Basically, what people want to know is that how can I trust this organization or this entity? And the sum total of that is the reputation. So you find out that in Nigeria of today, our reputation has taken a lot of bashing. We are not where we ought to be. We understand that, I mean, I was around in the 60s, even though I was image, the pride that the country held in the international community. And we've lost incredibly a lot of that. There are nations that we were leading before then in terms of GDP, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of social welfare, health, education, and so on and so forth. But now they are no longer, excuse me, we're far behind them, China for one. So you look at a situation whereby reputation management has to be a deliberate and concerted effort, not something we stumble on or something that is looked upon as an appendix. When you talk about the economy and reputation go together, because you will see that in most climes where the economy is good, the reputation is also good. And so this is a challenge that the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations took up, or has taken up, let me use that word, that phrase, and set up what you call the Nigeria Reputation Management Group. And it's made up of about, I think we're 17 of us on that board. And the mandate is that we should strategically rework the
Oh dear, network is not very friendly this morning, but we're hoping that Mr. Badejo Okusoya would come through. I believe he's back. He's telling us about the 17-man group of the reputation. Yes. Yeah, go ahead, sir.
So it's it's a 17-man group that has been put together by the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations. And the whole idea is that we must man our reputation gate. The reputation gate of Nigeria has been left unmanned for a long time. We want to draw people's attention to it. We want people to collaborate and make we bring to the consciousness, make it a front burner issue. That's the reputation of this country. So in a nutshell, that is the reason, that's the mandate that the Nigeria Reputation Management Group, of which I am the chairman, has to man the reputation gate of Nigeria, to deliberately fashion out policies, strategies that will help us revitalize that reputation.
So how does it work? How do you reposition, say, let's just give an hypothetical situation, a bad situation. In your summation, I understand when you said, for instance, if the economy is bad, when you manage reputation in a good economy, it's easy, the work is a lot easier. But Nigeria, we have a lot of challenges. So from where do we begin to manage internally first, before we even talk about how people perceive us, how we perceive ourselves? How do we begin there? Because the trust quotient is very low. People don't trust their leaders in this country, no matter how well-intentioned. Because of successive failure, you may have the best ideas, but as soon as you get in, I used to tell people that soon in Nigeria, the law says you're innocent until proven guilty. That's our law. But when you're a politician, you're guilty. As soon as you become a politician, you now have to walk yourself out of your guilt. So how do we start to make people believe in our country?
Thank you very much for that question. First, one of the things that we're going to be looking at is what I call a value reorientation initiative. I want to give kudos to the Nigeria Orientation Agency. It's a national orientation agency. And they have been doing some work, but we realize that private sector is best to drive this value reorientation. So we will be working with them, we'll be collaborating with them. But the challenge is that because it is a government agency, some people may look at it with a pinch of salt. So we are there to work with them. We are private sector driven.
Oh, dear.
All right. Well, interested in that strategy, Jeffrey.
Yeah, we're
and
definitely interested.
You can't hear me again?
Go ahead,
Yeah,
please.
go ahead, sir. You're back.
There's a network knocking you off time and again. But go ahead, we can hear you now.
This is what we have in Nigeria. I have two networks on, and I'm trying to struggle, but that's part of the problem we have in Nigeria for infrastructure. I do apologize for not being able to come to your studio after that traffic last night. It would have been virtually impossible to get anywhere. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. Please go ahead. Go ahead, please. Go ahead, sir.
Yes. So I said we'll be working with the Nigerian Orientation Agency. They have their mandate because their government, we talked about the trust quotient. And what we will be doing is seeing how we can successfully drive a value reorientation initiative, whereby, one, let Nigerians take ownership of their country and take ownership of things that are happening in their country. One of the things we've talked about is that 15th of October, globally, we have designated it Nigeria Reputation Day. And what will happen on that day, we're going to galvanize people to be more conscious of the indices that drive reputation. So we can't do something on one hand.
Oh, the network has not been very friendly today, but I'm interested in knowing what Nigerian Reputation Day would look like and how we can get on board, the majority of Nigerian youths who are pretty much disillusioned, with the situation back home, to embrace the values and the quick gains of what Nigerian Reputation Day would look like. I believe Mr. Yomi Badijo is back now.
Mr. Badijo, please go ahead.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you. I'm trying to connect to another platform. Maybe that will be better. Again, that's a problem we have in Nigeria. So the whole essence of this is to see how we can successfully drive a value reorientation initiative where Nigerians can take ownership and they realize that the issue of reputation. Okay, let me stop here. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you, sir. Go ahead. We're listening to you, sir.
Okay.
But we're getting a hold back. If you could turn off whatever it is that's giving us a hold back.
Let me see.
Oh, so that's exactly the question I'm asking Mr. Badijo, because...
and I'm glad that he kept acknowledging that the network challenge is part of the problem.
There's a guru in this space. It could be a challenge to call black white and call white black, which is exactly the question we're asking him. Look, Nigeria is a lovely, beautiful country. We're not just blessed with the right set of people manning our gates. A lot of the time. That's where we are. There's nothing wrong with this country. I would like to be born in Nigeria tomorrow. And I mean it from my very heart. But the unfortunate situation in terms of leadership, which we discussed with Akoma Yoga yesterday, and now he's talking about reputation management. You know, it's not just window dressing. It has to be real for real, because crime happens everywhere. In America, in Europe, everywhere crime happens. But they've been able to somehow manage the situation and all of that. So perhaps where we need to start from is to believe in our country. And believing in our country, for me, will begin with the leaders being honest. Our leaders are not honest. Most of them are not honest, you know, in what they do. The rule of law is another issue again. The rule of law is another part of it. So, because now with the Uromi situation, you can see Nigerians drawing parallel with what happened in Sokoto with Deborah. That's the situation. Death is dead. It's condemnable. It's distasteful. I don't even know what word to use. You can't just execute people brutally like that. So anyway,
and you know, it's part of what we're talking about. Some would, you know, blame the media for putting out continually negative content about Nigeria, and they talk about how these things happen all over the world. But it's not the first thing that the international community or representatives of those countries in the media space would put out. But we must also develop a strategy, you know, that would strike a balance between putting out what is good about Nigeria and, you know, as much as possible telling the story, but not, you know, putting forward those bad stories about Nigeria as well.
Let's go to Mr. Badijo. Mr. Badijo, please go ahead. We will have this conversation one way or the other. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, I can hear you clearly. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes, please.
We have changed devices. So for us, we believe that, like I said, the reputation gate has been left unmanned for such a long time. So it is important for us to be able to develop a deliberate, intentional, and concerted effort at bringing the issue of reputation to make it a front burner one that every stakeholder in Nigeria will key into, be they private sector and public sector. The difference between what we are doing and what NOA is doing is that we are private sector driven. We have been established along the lines like the Nigeria Economic Summit Group. So what NESG is to the economy or to Nigeria, we, NRMG, we are to this country. We have a number of ideas and thoughts and initiatives of how we're going to drive this. And what...
Oh dear, the challenge, network challenge has interrupted yet again. But Mr. Kusara, if you can hear me, we would have had so many follow-up questions about, you know, this particular strategy and how to sell it to young Nigerians, especially, a lot of whom, you know, exiting the country in this Japa syndrome and as a result of disillusionment, you know, but the network hasn't been clement. But I'm interested in knowing, because reputation is earned over time. Reputation is what you're known for. Now, introducing management to it is managing something that is seemingly not wholesome. So I'm interested in knowing how this particular strategy would navigate around those indices that you talked about earlier on. The inflation, the GDP to debt, the debt to revenue ratio, these things that are known by the international community, whom we're trying to sell Nigeria to. We're asking them to come and invest. So how are you going to navigate this negative indices, you know, to getting us all of those investments that even members of the administration are trying hard to get, but what they've only gotten so far is promises, in terms of value of a dollar, but not necessarily physical investment on ground. If you're there, and I hope you got it.
Oh dear.
Mr. Badijo Kusoya.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. So what are we going to do? It's going to entail a number of things. Research is key so that we can feel the pulse of the nation. And based on that research, we are going to develop effective strategies that can assist us in engaging the various stakeholders. And basically, what are we doing? We're saying to whether you're in private sector, whether you're in the public sector, whatever action you do is either adding to the reputation of the country or is taking away from it. And there are key issues that we as Nigerians must be aware of. And so before, the previous ones that have been done have been from top to bottom. We are starting from bottom to top. Why? Because about 3 years ago, we had Citizen Summit in Abuja, and the Reputation Management Group has come out of that stakeholders event we had in Abuja 3 years ago. So it is the results, it is the empirical study, the results, empirical study that was carried out that then got NIPR. So that's why we said it is bottom up. At that meeting, at that summit, we had everybody from all parts of Nigeria. In fact, before we had the final summit, we were in the 6 geopolitical zones of Nigeria, each one where we met with stakeholders and we dissected the issues that had to do with conflict resolution, the issues that had to do with the reputation of Nigeria, and what kind of Nigeria would we want to see. So it is the report of that summit, we call it the Citizen Summit, that we are acting on, that clearly mandated that there must be a private sector-led initiative that would focus on the on reputation as a tangible asset of national development.
All right, Mr. Yomi Badijo Kusoya, thank you so much. I know that this may form part of your conversation in Uyo where you're having, I understand you're the chairman of the AGM Planning Committee for NIPR in Uyo coming up next month. So is this part of the things you guys will be doing in just 30 seconds?
Definitely. We have the Nigeria Public Relations Week coming up in Uyo between May 15 and May 19th, I beg your pardon, and 24th. And it will be happening in Uyo. Again, we're looking at the economy because economy and reputation work together. And this time there's
oh dear.
All right. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. We hope that we can have a smooth sail discussion on this very important subject matter sometime in the near future. We've been talking with Mr. Yomi Badijo Kusoya. He's a fellow NIPR and the chair of the group, Nigeria Reputation Management Group. Thank you so much for coming through on the program this morning. And from here, thank you, sir. And from here, we head out to Berlin, Germany, where we'll be getting insights from discussions on the 3rd Global Disability Summit. Kade will be bringing us that conversation. But we'll take a break now, and we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. We're now head to Berlin in Germany, where my colleague Kade is standing by with the Minister of State for Humanitarian Affairs, Dr. Yusuf Sununu. I'll be talking about the 3rd Global Disability Conference that started yesterday. Kade.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. Yes, we're live at Station Berlin, which is a venue of the 2025 Global Disability Summit. And yes, a lot of major issues have been thrashed out at the German Chancellor speaking yesterday. We have the King of Jordan. Of course, Nigeria's delegation is well represented here today. I'll introduce the Minister of State any minute from now. But just to bring you up to speed, guys, with some of the big stories making the rounds right here in Europe and Germany, to be precise. But let's start with President Donald Trump announcing the tariffs over imports into the US. And that's one of the biggest stories making the rounds right now in Europe. And then you see how the UK media is reporting that story. Just see how it's reporting, saying Brexit and Britain escapes worst Trump tariff. So this is why that story is captioned that way. Yes, we know the UK has since left the EU. Remember the Brexit situation, right? But what the president of the US did was the tariff for the EU was 20%, but tariff for imports from the UK was put at 10%. So the British media is reporting it in such a way that it gives some sort of reason for Brexit. It makes Brexit all of a sudden a good thing, at least for those who are probably doubting it. Let's see, we got 10% tariffs. If you, the EU, that would left got 20%, or if we're still in the EU, I would have gotten 20% tariffs on exports into the United States. So that's how British media is reporting that. But it's also interesting how the New York Times is reporting it. I have a copy of the New York Times, the international edition here, and it says Trump thinks consumers will accept tariff pain as government sells the idea that buying cheap goods is not the American dream. So different ways reporting this. One also from British media. This is from New York Times International Edition, but you can tell that the EU dailies aren't taking this anyway. So it's going to be very painful for those who are manufacturing and selling goods into the US. But that is how the story is rippling across Europe this morning. The latest tariffs imposed by President Donald Trump. Speaking to some of the people in Germany, particularly the taxi drivers, well, I'm excited that Trump is in power for his rhetoric, immigration and the tariffs exposed. The immigrants feel like the space keeps shrinking for them. But that's it with the dailies this morning. Let's get into the big conversation just taking place here at the station, really, the Global Disability Summit. Not to worry, we'll come back to the dailies. And as Jeffrey said, I have joining me here today Dr. Sununu, who's the Minister of State for Humanitarian Affairs. He is the Nigeria's delegation from the government side. Dr. Sununu, good morning. Welcome to the morning.
Thank you, Mr. Claudio.
Very well. I'm still trying to keep tabs with all of the stories around tariffs, but let's focus on one way. It's on disability issues, the issue of inclusion. It's channels television, it's perhaps in Africa. Representing this is a big box. Speak to us about government's thinking. Heard the German Chancellor speaking about how it is to have inclusion. It's a night. Because 1 in 6 of us has some significant disabilities. So speak to us about what the rest by doing. So that 1 in 6 are included.
Very much for everyone asked only African scholars of one disability summit, right? Next series of the summit. Also, thank you much. Just about 5 days I was in the studio. Also, thank television for filmmaking directed Nigerian state so that they can deal with the government and from the country. So that comment on the main issue that we're here. I think I must to say that, which I mentioned is that Nigeria is actually making in terms of inclusion. Although we will be resource constraint, but we have gone far in the legal framework was the opportunity to integrate gradually everybody. And look at the point agenda of the president in absolute. It's one of the component of the agenda, which involves carrying everybody along in terms of collaboration, in terms of activities, in terms of and so that has really given us an insight of what we do. And if you look at also the Disability Act of the country, you find that the first chapter is against discrimination. It says that at one of the acts, nobody should discriminate anybody because of his physical, mental, or whatever form of disability. Yeah, and also go to order to criminalize it in the same pattern, saying that whosoever did that, if you have an organization, penalty awaiting, or at least for corporate organizations, about 1 million or 6 months jail, or you are an individual who must pay 100,000 or a 6-month jail. So you have seen that Nigeria has really connected with this. What we are needing to watch now, like I said, is emphasis to ensure that how much of that act is put to use, and that brings us to the under holistic operationalization. I mentioned that in the act yesterday that there is a moratorium period of 5 years, within which Nigeria must do all that is needed to ensure that there is inclusivity of people with disability in our sector in terms of our employment, political participation, health, education, and partially in all the fields like transportation. Within that 5 years, we're expected to meet the global standard of what we are expected to keep. I think we have made some inroad, but definitely it's one of the areas that ministry, corporate engagement with society, so to pay much attention to that. And it's also featured most seriously in the commitment we've submitted to this summit. So we're committed to the full implementation of that. I'm sure we'll have 100% partnership with the president, because the president of the country wants to carry everybody forward. And to him, it's also another form of social services Nigerians who are of intervention anytime.
Well, that's good to hear. It's one thing to have the laws, to have the science, to have it about seeing this event, see how something is a framework for all of it. Accessibility, it just shows that people think, or at least the government is able to think about other people and say, how will they be included? Or this person is visually impaired, so let's ensure that we find a way to ensure that this person is carried along. So they give the person audio devices, right? Or they find a way to ensure that the person is just carried along. This person can't hear, for example. So they have text. All through this event, we've had texts all over. So in terms of really operationalizing it, and that's what I want you to speak to back home, you still have buildings that are not disability accessible. Is it a problem of funding? Is it a problem of orientation? So you think maybe you need to do better orientation. What exactly have you found to be the problem in terms of inclusion in Nigeria?
Well, the major problem initially is the mindset of average Nigeria in the position of authority. As at that time, and that's why the global is not only in Nigeria. That's why now there is this global inclusion, drive for inclusion. Because globally, you find that 10 years back, nobody is not in the front burner of discussion on how we carry people with disability. So you find that our set of mindset at that time, nothing much tangible was done in order to see they are carried along. And that's why they act. And if you look at the act, if you are talking about terms of easy access, that is also part of it. I think either part of the act that talk on access. And then it make it criminalize lack of access by people with disability to any of the, whether government or private infrastructural place, so that they must have equal access like people with disability. You see, we must also agree that disability can be congenital, one may be born with it, but it's also a translate. It's a part of life. Most of the people with ability today, or disability today, were able. You got a lot of them, even it's an able person, but along the line he had an accident. So it means that what we are doing now is to take care of able Nigerians, because they are not certain that one throughout his life is going to be able. So you understand, even if you are able, at a certain time, aid will catch up with you, and you may need to services.
How is the Honorable Minister?
Such building that are not taking into consideration provision of the act to ensure that there is access provision were made for the not sit like
So you're saying that, I just need to cut in, Honorable Minister. So you're saying that if your office, for example, doesn't have or provide access for people with disability, I'm talking about RAMs and all of these other things, you will be fined as well, and you don't mind paying the fine. But you tell us, is your office disability friendly?
My office is disability friendly because it's not only Trump where you have terms for it, but then have a lift. It's free. It means that industry is disability friendly. That system. Yeah. All my meetings that I've had, disability, because officially those who are it's in my office, and they use the ministry's lift to get up to the fifth floor. So this is also friendly. But I'm not saying what I'm saying now. At design level, at design, there should be that concentration, which was missing previously. Right. That act says that any person who approved any building infrastructure after the 5 years of monitoring that is no disability friendly, has committed an offense as liable to certain penalty and so that is so what I'm saying now. In our own submission act commitment is to say that we have to implement that act in total. Now, other countries, they are saying now in their own commitment is that they are going to have the act.
All right.
And I'm now telling you that we have gone beyond that. We have even passed the period of monitoring from 2018 to 2025 now. It's almost 5 years now.
All right.
So it means that we're now to go into this full-scale implementation. And let me tell you one thing. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is resolved to allow the ministry to do what is needed. For instance, when I was in education, some organizations were excluded from the national budget. One of them is a computer science professional registration council. And they came to me, they said, no, they are going to disengage their staff. I said, no, let's look into your act. President Bola Ahmed said we must implement it in total. And that with that, you will be, I'm sure, in the next 6-8 months, you will need to employ more.
All right.
To God be the glory. Just open their office and they are planning to employ more.
There you go.
Because the act is professionalized. So that's also what we are going to do for Disability Act.
Well, that's cheery to hear. And when you mentioned the president, he's actually on his way to Paris now, which is just about an hour, 30 minutes away from here. And there's no way we'll talk about the policies without talking about the politics. Being in power, your party, and you've been in this from the National Assembly to the cabinet of the president. So you're someone who understands the interplays of politics across borders, even in the party. In your state, Kebbi State, you are very strong as well. But there's been this sentiment over time regarding the president's appointments. A lot of people saying he's focused on the South. The NNPCL appointment just came now. The chairman, the GTO. Some say, well, we still see them as people from the South, right? Is that sentiment, is it a northern sentiment for you, or is just a group of people pushing that sentiment? Do you believe that the president is southern or southern-centric in his appointments?
No, you see, sometimes Nigeria is a very difficult country to govern, and everything you do is subjected to a lot of interpretation. Okay, if I'm from Kwara, if I'm from Kogi, you understand? A lot of people will give it a different interpretation. Understand? For anybody in Kwara State, lives is a northerner. So also in Kogi State, just very few may have a sentiment they are not in the other part of the country. So if you pick somebody from Kwara, because it's a self-prescribable, people will think, no, that's also from the South. Even if they are not some minority, for instance, by virtue of their few number in terms of the tribe affiliated in that part of the country, does not mean that they should not be given the right to participate in governance, and it's not also equate them that giving them is giving someone. Because it's still the geopolitical zone of the North Central. So you understand, and you also have to look at it. Where we are now, there are a lot of, we're going forward for 2027, and a lot of calculations, interpretation, or whatever you have, so that at least you see any opposition that allowed the ruling party to sleep, that opposition is not there. So a lot of things may be really political, and we're in a period of politics, and one thing with President Bola Ahmed, his government is freedom of expression.
Yeah.
There's no media house that shut down. There is nobody that has been so much challenged because he has voiced his distance. So Nigerians are at the liberty to present, to say this, but actually, President is also calculated in looking at the situation the way they are, and they're doing it to ensure that there is equity and fairness in the decision. He's doing it. If you look at a lot of this, in terms of issue of infrastructure, that so much also has been done.
Right.
Like my government made it clear in every state that you have no reason, not support the government. For me, you got my constituents who have been left out in terms of educational this and today. I'm Federal College of Education, Yaoundé. My own hometown, Tambo, that can just take you 45 minutes to from my Emirate headquarters. Now, it's about this 5 to 7 hours.
So you believe that the president is fair to the North?
I always say president is also fair to the North.
All right. Well, Minister, I know there's a lot of work ahead of you, clearly, from all of the conversations we'll have here today. But we're glad that we're able to get you, in spite of the busy schedule here in Berlin, to speak to issues around inclusion and politics back home. We've been speaking with the Minister of State for Humanitarian Affairs, Dr. Yusuf Sununu. Thank you so much for your time. And wish you the very best. We'll be following up with the office, by the way, to see the work being done. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Good support.
Thank you. Well, there you go. We'll take a quick break now. When we return, we're back home. Stay with us.
Let's talk about human resource management. And we're being joined in the program by the Group Human Resources Director, Flour Mills of Nigeria. Joining us right here, and we'll be talking to us about a lot of things that has to do with shaping the future of work. So, Uche Ajo is her name. Welcome to the program, madam.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So let's start with the easy part. Let's start with the easy part, and that has to do with what you've experienced with the way work is being done right now by the various generations. I'm sure you're, as a human resource manager, you're seeing people, millennials, maybe baby boomers, Gen Zs, all of the categories of people that now work within the spaces we find ourselves. So if you were to do an overview evaluation of how they respond to work, they perceive work, they do work, how would you, what would be your assessment?
I mean, very valid question around in terms of how do work come through across the different generations. I mean, because of experiences and the way things are done, they approach work differently. And what I try to say upfront, none of it is wrong. It's just a difference on how you approach work, and each of it comes with its own advantages and some opportunities that you can improve on. So yes, they have different approaches to work. We are going from generation that liked a bit more structured work approach, the time to come to work, be in the office, to a generation that is a bit more flexible and are craving for a lot of flexibility, and we're talking about the Gen Z. And I think our role is how to adapt the workplace to accommodate everyone. Because I think there's always a tendency to help one generation more than the other, but the key thing is how do you adapt it. So yes, they're approaching work differently. We are seeing more acts of people wanting for their work to be meaningful. In the past, work was about, I do this task, I get paid for it. We're getting a generation that actually wants to have their work have meaning, have impact, leaning to work to things that add value to them. The other one I'm seeing more is people trying to do the work they're interested in. You know, I like to do this type of work. So organizations are even now reshaping the job descriptions to accommodate more the things some people would like to do, so that we're getting the best value out of them. And one of the ways I've seen this play out, in fact, I had to adapt that recently, is what they call the fractional working, co-working, where you're getting someone's skills, not necessarily hiring the person in-house and say, you're good at this. I probably need, 20% of your full-time job. So work for me for this 20%, 4 hours a week, 3 times a week, and you can work for any other person. I don't have the responsibility of having you as a full-time employee for me. What I do have is I'm taking your skills and services. That's what I'm seeing more coming with the Gen Zs.
Do these big organizations leverage these opportunities?
Yes, they can. I piloted that, started about 6 or 7 months ago, very successful. You know, it's done 2 things for me. That particular tax
I have 3 or 4 people in my team that need to do it. They don't do it very well. It takes a lot of time. We just outsource it. So the person is 6 hours a week, a fixed fee per month, and then they call in on the services. And that is working.
That's quite revealing, because it shows a shortage or a deficit in the ability to deliver of the older generation staff bulk, and possibilities of what the Gen Z have to offer in terms of the outsourcing of skills. So I'd like you to speak to that and help people understand what the thinking of human resource departments or practitioners of big corporations is in terms of what they need in skill set, such that they can be better positioned, to take on these tasks or prepare themselves for these tasks.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Just to correct something, I'm not going to say it's a deficit of skill. What I'm going to say is that the older generation, you had to do a job description that required multiple skills. And so sometimes they're very great at some part, and some you're not as great on the other part. So what we are trying to do is to say, leverage what you're strong at more and more. But when it comes to skills in Nigeria, I think one of the things we are seeing come to play is a lot of times the schools don't get you ready for the workplace. So the employers had to augment readiness for workplace as you come in more and more. One of the things we've been trying to champion with my organization is to say, how do we partner with government so that we influence the curriculum so that once they come out of school, they are ready for the workplace. But really, it's one of those areas we need to keep working on.
So what's important to the HR? The question, it's a tricky question, so I will explain. Resourcefulness, efficiency, or just being available. Because there are people that are available, they are not productive. As people that just, I just want to do the work and get out of here. So what is important to HR today? I'm asking questions that are relevant to today's young people. They don't want to come and sit down there and just be loitering in the name of, okay, I'm supposed to work for 9 hours or 7 hours. I'll just judicially stay for 6 hours. Productivity as against maybe availability, or is it both that have to work together for you?
Interesting. And I will answer your question starting that your understanding of availability means you're physically in the building. So if you're asking me, you're being physically in the building or being productive,
which is the old order, by the way.
I prefer you being productive. So productivity is, of course, more important. But it's very difficult to be productive without being available. I think what it needs to happen is for us to redefine what available means. And I think that's what you're hearing more of the Gen Z's asking for. Let's define what is available. Available doesn't mean have to be I'm in the building. Available means that for the task that is required of me, at the time is required of me, I'm able to do it. One of the beauties I've had in my career is I've had to work remotely. So I was part of a global team. As probably max 2 people in the country, most times, each of us. It's where I appreciated that work could be done without seeing yourself face to face. And you could have a meaningful relationship with your colleagues, even while not working in the same location. Working across different time zones. So we had probably a 3-hour window that all of us are awake. Otherwise, we had to learn how to work even across the multiple time zones. So availability is what we need to redefine. It doesn't have to be being physically in the building. It has to be that you're available to do the work you're assigned to do and is delivered on time.
Well, what is going on? So, go ahead, please.
If they're working outstation, I hope that the big corporations are also making available what they require to deliver on that productivity that you're looking out for.
Actually, very interesting perspective. That's actually changing, and it's a good debate that I had not quite a year and a half ago. When remote work started, there was a lot of incentive, pressure for the employer to make working at home as comfortable as it is working within the office. But the question now is, the facilities required are usually now standard part of homes. So internet connection, connectivity, to some extent power, are also available in homes. So you could still leverage.
Ban A.
Ban A. So, I mean, we had that debate, and the consensus was, if you opt to work from home, it's at your convenience. There's no pressure for the employer to make the conditions in the office same at home.
So
That's tricky because it could mean an increase in the monthly financial outlook for the employee, which the employer should take responsibility for if you require that same level of efficiency. For instance, they may not have planned to put on their generators during the work hours, but they now require to put on they're required to put on their generators. They may need workstations. They may have had a budget for internet connectivity, at the month, but there's now an increase because they have to work from home. Yeah. So are those things also being considered?
Indeed. And I'll look at it, so there are two angles to it, and I'll lay out the two school of thoughts, and I'll share my perspective. When I require you to work from home, meaning I'm not providing space for you to work, I'm also expected to make you comfortable to work at home. That's at the minimum, And I have done in my past life up to desks and chairs and printers and things for people to have a home office to make them comfortable. Because to your point, productivity is for me, and I don't want you to have an excuse. But I have to balance that with, if you opt, where I have provided my facilities for you to come to, and say, look, for some reason, I don't want to come to your facility all the time, it's okay for me to say, it's fine, I'm okay with it. But please ensure that you're still giving me the same level of productivity if you choose not to come to the facility I've provided.
I'm seeing that you're doing a lot of, there's a lot of pros. We have to look at things differently and evolve with time. But what are the setbacks? What are the challenges with all of these new approaches?
I mean, when you talk about new approaches, a bit of more flexibility, working remotely, I think one of the setback I would say is, how do we ensure that we have meaningful human connections, Because at the end of the day, there is a formal organization, there is the informal organization. And the way the politics and informal things happen, within the workplace it's a nuance you have to learn. You require a bit longer time if you're remote than if you're in the office and watching the behaviors, watching the power dynamics and the power play. So just learning how to work and the people you connect in office politics is something that people have to put an extra effort to do. And so that's why you see a lot of drive towards team building activities, deliberate engagement of employees, so that you still create the atmosphere for people to connect. Also, I learned there are very fancy online versions of those things. Organizations are putting more emphasis on things like personality type assessment, doing those things so that you already have like a cheat code to understanding who you're working with and things like that. So one of it is the connectivity. The other one is, frankly, there's still some people that need a bit of policing. They struggle with self-motivation. And this is why I tell leaders and managers, be very clear on your expectation. I think you're able to identify quickly where someone is not delivering if the expectations are clearly laid out and they're being missing on it. Then it's easy to have the conversation to say, it's not working because I expected X, Y, Z, which we are reasonable, which we agreed to, and we're not delivering on it.
Brilliant. I like personality test assessment. Let's talk about what seems to be another bigger elephant in the room. Okay. How are big corporations navigating the need to balance profitability with staff motivation in terms of remuneration and welfare? I mean, coppers have only begun to receive their 77,000 naira after a long time since the approval. So what are the challenges in that area for big corporations?
It's really an elephant in the room. And it's a really fine balancing act, ensuring that you are paying the right money to motivate people and enable them to live. You're not even asking motivation, have a meaningful living wage to come to work and to deliver on, because at some point you get no value, if people keep coming that way. And then I think it's, like you said, it's a balance, looking at the balance sheet, making choices. I think one of the things that corporates are trying to do, and we have to do better, is actually making choices. What can I really do? What can I afford to do? What can I not afford to do? And design your organization around that parameters. There is a want to do everything. The reality is that based on the economic situation, we can't do everything at the same time. So it's how do I make the choices, the tough choices I need to make in terms of what projects and business I have to pursue, how many people can I truly afford to take care of and keep well. And then sometimes take out emotions out of it so that we can create that fine balance. And then, like you said, we've talked earlier, look at things like remote working, how do I balance cost for people? Look at the benefits you're offering. Are they also very meaningful anymore? If I'm spending money on a benefit that doesn't add value, can I make it flexible? for somebody to take part of his benefits now to do other things that I do. So it's all about being creative and also engaging the employees.
I wish, look, I like the way you're thinking, and I think that's the way every HR should be thinking, so that, there's a balancing act. That's what I took out of this conversation, that balancing act, and knowing that the world is changing. The world is changing really fast, and this Gen Z, Lord. Anyway,
Jeffrey, my next two questions put her on the spot. I wanted to ask her, what the entry-level offer would be for a young graduate that is approaching her, and why flour is expensive. We can't get a small cake anymore. But I wanted to get that laugh from you.
Are you willing to answer?
I would not express the exact amount for starting salary in FMN, but I would say that we do have competitive pay. We've actually done quite a few reviews in the past.
You just focus on HR. Thank you. Your Group Human Resources Director at Flour Mills of Nigeria. Thank you so much, madam, for coming.
Thank you.
Quite insightful. We're going to get you back to talk more about these things. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, just in case you're looking out for places to work, okay, you have an idea of how the world is actually functioning and working right now. Thank you for always listening and taking those notes to make sure that Nigeria is better. But we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll get to the next leg of the conversation. Join us again.
And so from human resource management, we move on to human expressions management. We're talking art on this particular segment. And we have joining us on the program, Mary Elie. She's a multidisciplinary artist who joins us from our Abuja studio. Mary, thank you so much for joining us on the program. Hello, Mary.
Thank you for having me. It's actually May Elie, M-E-Y.
Oh, May Elie. Thank you for the correction. So, May, it's good to have you. I have so much respect for you, May, because you're a multidisciplinary artist. And if we know what that means, it means you work across different art forms of expression. So, are you a genius, May? Did you grow up as a genius?
Yes.
And just talk to us about your work, how many media you work with.
Okay, so I wouldn't consider myself a genius, but I know that when it comes to exploring different media, when it comes to finding channels of expression, I try my best to delve into different ones. So I'm talking documentary photography. I'm interested in that. I like to take pictures, but for documentary. I'm also a poet. I get to write as well. I'm also a visual artist. So basically, when it comes to the stories I need to tell, my stories, I try as much as possible, I try as much as I can to use any media that comes to me, any medium that comes to me, rather.
So talk to us about your artwork, which navigates identity and human emotion. What is it, from within resonates with your artworks that makes you want to express in emotion, and what are the identities also that have an impact on you, that inspire your work?
So my works are largely inspired by our Africanness as Nigerians. If you take a look at the kind of colors I use, they're vibrant and they're loud, just the way that we are even as a people. Not loud in the way that makes us bad, but loud in the way that makes us very happy people. My colors are vibrant, our food is colorful, our celebration is colorful, we go the extra mile. All of that's inspired the kind of work that I do. And I like to think of my use of oversized glasses as some sort of satire, but then not in the way that satire is explained, but more like an exaggeration of some sorts. So that for me is how I find myself and how I tell the kind of stories that I want to tell. Again, my stories are also inspired by my environment. They're inspired by those around me. They're inspired by human experiences. I like to observe people. I like to observe what they wear, why they wear what they wear, how they wear what they wear. I like to observe people in their restful states, you know, to have a better understanding and to tell my story better as well.
So I see that you play with a lot of bright colors. Maybe you speak to us about why the choice of bright colors. Is it your optimism to life, or just a reflection of what you see, or you choose not to see the dark spaces? Because artists, there's a way the mind works. So help us get into your mind space.
Absolutely. My love for bright colors is a deliberate attempt to lean into the light, because I think it's very easy for artists, especially artists, to, should I say, I don't want to use the word get depressed, but then because there's a lot of thinking, there's a lot of deep thinking that happens. You know, we're trying to figure out what to do next, what painting to create, why is the world the way it is. That alone can push us to the edge. And my use of bright colors is my way of holding down happiness and saying, I am going to be deliberate about this. I'm going to find joy in the tiniest places, in places where they do not probably exist. I'm going to try as much as possible to be joyful and to be happy. And like I also mentioned earlier, because I'm African, because I'm Nigerian, there's nothing less colorful about us in basically everything, from our weddings, from our events, from our meals, from our spices. There's a pop of yellow somewhere, there's red busting out, there's orange doing its thing. So all of that inspires me to stay happy.
All right, I'm looking at your work. You're going to speak to them individually if you can catch it where you are seated. But I noticed as well use of female imagery and glasses as well. Maybe you help us understand that. I'm just digging deep into your creative process. So when we get to that point, but talk about the glasses, talk about the women that use a lot in all of this.
Okay, so I'll start with the glasses. I'm intrigued by sights. I'm inspired by sights. I love the idea of sights. I love the idea of what we see and how that influences how we behave. From what we've seen in our past, what we see right now, what we're going to see tomorrow. It inspires me to want to create a picture where people can also pull into that to, you know, hold on to what vision can do for them. I love painting female figures. So besides the fact that they come easily to me, I like to think that I want to create a narrative where female figures or even women are not necessarily selling something or selling fish by the roadside. I think that is a narrative and it's a single story. But then again, I think there are also women who live in luxury, women who take the time to rest, sip a glass of wine, read a book, and do absolutely nothing. And even that is a narrative on its own, and it can all exist on both sides.
So there's also an outlandish element to your expression of these images as well. And I wonder what is responsible for that. I hope you catch my meaning.
Oh, no, say that again.
There seems to be a larger-than-life form of expression to these images as well. And I'm wondering, okay, what are you trying to say, you know, with this extraordinary element in these images, the big, you know, eyeglasses, the long necks and all that. There's that outlandish element to your creative forms of expression.
Yeah. Okay, so at first my use of oversized glasses was basically built on audacity. I wanted to express audacity in a way that I'd never seen it before. I wanted to create what I'd never seen, and I wanted to go, say, 200%, not do 100%. I didn't want to do what was expected. I wanted to be bold and audacious. And my own way, I also wanted to inspire my collectors or those who see my art, those who see my work, to know that they can do what they want to do, the way they want to do it, and be audacious and bold about it. Because I think that the truth is, if we decide to play small, I did not want to play small. So if we decide to play small, there's someone who's going to come in 1 year and is going to take it off the hook. Like the person is going to go the extra mile and do way more than we even imagined. So it's my way of saying, if I can do 50%, I'd like to do 150. If I can do 150, I'd like to do 200. So audacity for me, and being bold and even courageous is what inspired, or is what inspires my use of oversight classes.
So you sound to me, and your art comes to me like a creative activist. What's the activism really all about? Is it space for women, or what exactly is the bigger picture that you're trying to paint here?
Okay, so I don't know that I'll call it activism.
It is.
Okay, maybe it is, but I do know that I'd like to inspire more people. I'd like to inspire younger people, and it's why I do the work that I do with the Academic Arts Foundation, where I teach young people to paint. And that for me is my way of saying you can also be economically empowered. You can make money from the arts. You can paint and make money from it. So I think if that's what activism is, then definitely that's what I do. It's my way of saying I want to inspire people. I want them to see the world differently. I want them to think about the world in a different way. And the art does not have to be, it doesn't have to be sad. It doesn't have to be dark. It can be happy. The colors can be happy. It can be simple and interesting at the same time. It can be clean as well. I can use colors and they're very clean. I can paint women who are really not doing anything at the moment and sitting still and just in their own spaces. And even that is okay.
So is your strategy to tell all sides to the story, projecting luxury women as well? Is it, you know, an approach to getting that target audience as your patrons, which brings me to my next question. Talk to us about the market. How lucrative is it?
Okay, so my strategy is not to tell every side of the story, because I don't think that I can. I know that I can choose one and harness it and enjoy it while I'm at it. When it comes to the market, so I think gone are the days when being an artist was such a death sentence. You know, when you say you're an artist, people start to sort of pity you, you know, and wonder how you're going to make a living out of it. But I think it's changed. Technology has helped a lot, you know. So from the comfort of my home, I can sell my paintings. I sell my paintings from the comfort of my home. I paint, put it up online. I have people who reach out to me to say, oh, I want this painting, and I get to sell. So yeah, it's without sounding too cliche, but I think it's very lucrative. I think it's very lucrative, but I think it's also changing. You know, the value that's been placed on artworks is actually getting better as it is. I think more Nigerians are beginning to understand the art and love it as well. So it's no longer a case of, oh, Nigerians don't love the art, or it's only white people that like the art. No, Nigerians love the art. Nigerians love my paintings.
Okay, I want to run. Yes, I want us to run through.
Some for it.
Yeah, I want us to run through. I know you have your personal project, more like your foundation. You're going to speak to us in just a moment about that. But if my producer can put up those pictures, you could help us, give us a clear interpretation of one or two, or what was on your mind, if you can come up. But if that is not, okay, this one, for instance, what is this? What are you saying here?
So the title of this particular work is "Give Me a Cool Drink Before I Die."
All right.
And what I was saying, or what I'm saying, what I said with this particular painting.
Okay, maybe we'll get to look at the next
one.
What
I said with this particular painting was appreciate. Okay. Okay, so I was working on that, and that was titled Majestic.
And what is this? What are you saying here?
This is titled Self-Aware.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let's talk about that.
Okay. I wanted to create a consciousness.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
On which one?
On the one you're seeing on your screen right now.
Okay, so like I said, I titled it "Give Me a Cool Drink Before I Die," and what I said without painting was, I need more women to be appreciated while they're alive. So men and women, not women necessarily, or not women totally. I'm saying give people their flowers while they can still smell them. Let's appreciate women. Let's appreciate people while we can still do it. And I drew inspiration from the story of some gospel singer who didn't get her accolade when she was alive. And I think Ifesinachi, I'm not really sure about the name right now, but it came after she passed. You know, a lot of people saying how her song blessed them, but I don't think she got all of that while she was alive. So that inspired that particular painting.
Well, that's bittersweet. But just before we let you go, talk to us very quickly about your foundation. You spoke to it earlier on, but perhaps you could just elaborate on it, where you teach children to learn art.
Yeah, so the Academic Arts Foundation, basically what I do is reach out to young people in secondary school mostly, and teach them how to paint. And the idea behind it is to open up their hearts and their minds to economic empowerment and what they can do with the arts and how they can earn from it, you know, and how they can change their lives and change their stories. That's mostly what I do. Give support, mentorship, funding to younger people who are interested in the arts and teach them how to paint as well.
And it's interesting that you're giving back, you know, while also making an impact in your career. And that's why we are happy to have you, and we're proud of what you're doing. Thank you so much, May Elia, multidisciplinary artist who has joined us on this particular segment.
All right.
Thank you so much for having me.
So from there, Jeffrey, we must touch base with that bridge that has caused excruciating traffic and commuting for Nigerians, Lagosians on the island. So
we've got to show you the situation. The Independence Bridge, we understand the federal government has ordered its reopening. So I think this is a piece of work that has been ongoing there. We sent this video. That's why we're asking you to send the video so we can get to see what is going on. So I think this is the spots we understand from the video that was sent to us by one of our engineers. That is what is going on. But I'm sure it's a remedial measure. I'm not sure what it is in totality. But whatever it is that is going on has caused a lot of hardship for people, and it's excruciating, if you will.
Jeffrey, I wish we could determine what time this was recorded. But if it was recorded in the last 48 hours or so, it shows that there requires more work, you know, and more time to be devoted to that repair work before it can be ready. So maybe it was indeed, you know, valid that people did not believe indeed that the federal government had, or that order to reopen the bridge had been adhered to. So perhaps that explains the difficulty that Lagosians, particularly those on the island, are currently experiencing commuting to the mainland. And it may just continue, but we hope that the security agents would, you know, rise to the occasion and ensure that there is ease experienced on that route today and throughout the rest of the week, because, you know, getting to work, you must deliver, but the anticipation about how to get to work in the first place should not be added to that mix.
I think let's take one or two tweets, or posts on X, as we call it. Dr. Mary saying, the crazy part of Lagos traffic is at the end of the traffic, you might not see what caused it. No, this one is, I think it's where I see that kind of traffic is Ojodo area. Is it Ojodo now? Yeah, that should be. You just slow down, and then you realize what has been slowing us down here.
And then you don't find it.
You don't find it, because I think you have the next one.
Yes, and this one is from Fine Realtor, an apartment, who says, why can't people go and use the trains instead? And some use ferry. Or more, I saw people's tweets yesterday, and I can't help but feel pity for them. But why is it that the only thing wired on our head is the road Lagos has trains and ferry, that move. So fine rail says drawing attention to other forms of transport.
But if you know the number of people that use the third mainland and all of those places, you understand why this is a big issue. But hey, we must thank you so much for your time and company. Kayode joined us from Berlin. He had a conversation with the Minister of State. And tomorrow is the last leg of the conversations right here on the program before we'll move on to next week. But we must thank you so much. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Sunrise Daily is up next at the top of the hour. Bye-bye.
Yes, and we invite you to stay on with us throughout our continued broadcast of programs. Thank you so much for watching. We'll return with the home stretch tomorrow. I am Bukola Koka. Bye for now.